We all face a lot of failures in life, and they can really suck. They're not fun to go through, but time and time again, research and case studies have shown that failing is one of the best ways for us to learn. In fact, in John C. Maxwell's book, Failing Forward, he says, "Embrace adversity and make failure a regular part of your life. If you're not failing, you're probably not really moving forward." I've personally faced a lot of failures, and lately I have one in particular that I learned a ton from. But more importantly, I want to share with you some frameworks and structures that you can apply to your life and to your own failures. So that way, when you do fail, you're ready to learn how to learn from that failure, but then also how to overcome it and keep moving forward instead of quitting. Now, to preface this entire video, the failure that I'm going to be referring to is about competitive eating. So you might think, oh, this is some big failure. You didn't eat enough food. What a first world problem to have. And you're right, it is a first world problem. However, I think it's really important to challenge yourself at anything and push yourself out of your comfort zone to where you might face failures, because when you do face a real failure in life, you'll be ready for it and you'll know how to handle it, learn from it, and overcome it. So stick around in this video to learn some frameworks and structures of 1, how to challenge yourself and fail more often, 2, how to learn from those failures, and 3, how to overcome and not quit when facing failure. In one of my recent videos, after a long break from competitive eating, I tried to eat a 5.5 pound eating challenge. Long story short, I failed. And this was very, very tough on me because I was expecting to win. I thought I trained hard enough. And after all of that, I was not able to finish the challenge. I felt horrible, had to pay the restaurant $65 for losing. And I really didn't know what to do with myself. I remember I even went to my friends and talked to them after, and I was so sad. I was like, I'm gonna have to rebrand myself. This is what I'm known as. People that I work with know me as the competitive eater. I didn't know what to do. I really just wanted to quit. I didn't think that I was good enough. In fact, as I was editing that video, I even made an outro to the video explaining why I was quitting and why I would not be doing competitive eating anymore. So with everything I want to do and all of the goals that I have in my life right now, it just doesn't make sense right now to spend a lot of time training and feeling so bad for these challenges. So after a few days of wanting to quit and feeling really down on myself, I finally built up the courage to sit down and break out my journal and do what's called an after action report. It's something that's used in the military where you can go back and look at what was something good that happened from your failure, what were some of the bad things, and what are some of the things that you can do to make sure you don't fail next time. So after sitting down with my journal, I finally started to realize that maybe I don't need to quit. Like, do I really need to give up after just one big failure? Even though my brain was telling me to do that, something inside, once I started to journal and be logical and write these things out, told me that I should not quit, that I need to give this one more shot at least. In fact, in that after action report, I wrote a section called How I Handled That Failure. And some verbatims that I wrote were like this. I said, I have the choice right now to handle this well or let it affect other areas of my life. I also said I can use it to quit competitive eating forever, or I can use that as fuel and motivation to do another challenge and keep moving forward. The main thing that I realized from the journaling is that I needed an answer for myself. I think that's what a lot of people need after a failure, is you need some clarity. And that made me realize that I need to give this another shot and I need to do it soon. So without telling anybody else, I decided to do another competitive eating challenge just 2 days later, because I realized that I was embarrassed of failing in front of other people and a little bit humiliated that I couldn't finish. So instead, I wanted to try a very tough challenge to see if this is something I'm capable of doing. So one of the best competitive eaters in the world tried a challenge where he tried to eat 25 M&M ice cream cookie sandwiches all in one sitting. It doesn't sound that bad until I started to realize, all right, that's 50 cookies and 25 scoops of ice cream all at once. But I knew that was hard enough to where if I were to complete that, I'd feel good about this competitive eating thing, and I'd be able to mentally overcome that barrier of the last challenge I failed. So sure enough, 2 days later, without telling a single soul, other than my roommate because he would be there watching, I tried to attempt to eat 25 M&M ice cream cookie sandwiches. And to keep that a bit brief, I was going through that and I was struggling so much. Those dark thoughts kept coming back to my head of, you have to quit, you're not gonna be able to do this is too hard. But I was able to struggle through, power through, and finally finish that challenge. And it took a long time, but it made me get that answer. I knew that this competitive eating thing was something that I could do and was not defined by that one failure that I had. And I felt great. I remember just talking to the camera after finishing that challenge, talking about how great I felt that I was able to accomplish that. And when I went to go turn the camera off, well, the camera was already off and it had not recorded. So after all of that, because the last challenge I filmed took an hour and had so much storage on my phone stopped recording this challenge after just 8 minutes. And I was devastated. I was so sad. I went into my phone and deleted the old video from the failure challenge to make room to film my reaction. And I remember just turning the camera back on and looking at the camera and feeling horrible physically, but mentally, it was like the worst thing ever.
Guys, this is horrible news. I did the whole challenge, I promise. I ate all 25 sandwiches. It took me like at least 45 minutes. I even finished the last drips of ice cream with a spoon. Oh, I could cry right now because I feel horrible and I didn't even get it on film. Oh, that's a learning lesson. I'm sorry. I might just have to make a video on overcoming a failure, but even though it's not on film, I know I did it and it makes me feel a lot better. Oh, that's brutal. I'm sorry, guys.
But as I looked back, and actually pretty soon after, I realized it was almost poetic, because when you go through a failure, that's often an internal struggle and not something that relates to anybody else. And I knew that. That's why I didn't tell anybody about this challenge I was going to do. So when I completed it, I actually felt okay and was able to move on from the failure because I knew that I was capable. That was the answer that I needed to give myself, and nobody else needed to know that. So despite it not getting filmed on my phone and that being a little bit tragic, it really did help me move forward, and I'm really glad I did it. Now, I know that that means that there's some unfinished business with this challenge. I will be doing it again, but I was able to overcome that initial failure by putting myself out there, doing another challenge, and seeing if I could overcome it. So I learned a lot from this experience of failure that I know I can apply to other failures in my life that I'll face in the future, and I really think all of you can too. So for instance, if you fail competitively at some sport in the future, maybe you lose a job, I think that these practices are things that you should definitely apply so that you can help yourself overcome that failure and learn from it. So for instance, if you do lose a job, I think one of the most important things to do is, yes, give it some time and let it heal, but finally come to terms with yourself, confront that failure with a journal, do that after action report, and figure out why you failed, why do you feel upset about the failure, and then what are some of the things that you can do to overcome it? What are the answers that you need to give yourself, and what can you do to give yourself those mental answers? On top of that, the act of simply just not quitting and giving up after you fail something speaks volumes. Because the more that you can do that now, the more you can challenge yourself so much to the point that you're likely to fail, but then see that failure, overcome it, and move forward after that will just prepare you more and more for more challenges in the future and harder things to overcome. So those were some of my main takeaways from my recent failure with competitive eating. Hopefully it was a little bit of an entertaining and unique way to learn about overcoming failures. I certainly have learned a lot from it and plan to use these strategies, frameworks, and tactics in the future. And if you're curious about seeing the re-challenge of the challenge that I tried that did not fully get filmed, that will be coming soon, so please subscribe to the channel if you think that will be exciting, or drop a like or subscribe to the channel if you find any of this stuff interesting about self-improvement, competitive eating, challenges, fitness in general. There's a lot more content to come. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys all have a phenomenal week.